The ocean has always kept its secrets beneath restless waves. But there is one lighthouse that sailors still whisper about long after the sun disappears below the horizon, standing alone on a jagged cliff, surrounded by crashing waves and endless fog. Blackstone Lighthouse has earned a terrifying reputation over the last 2 centuries. Some call it cursed. Others believe it is haunted by the souls of those who never escaped its light. Local fishermen refuse to sail near it after dark, and even experienced captains change their course when its lonely silhouette appears through the mist. Yet no one truly knows what happened inside those ancient stone walls. The story begins in the winter of 1891. Thomas Gray, a respected lighthouse keeper, accepted the job of maintaining Blackstone Lighthouse after hearing that several keepers before him had mysteriously disappeared. He dismissed the rumors as nothing more than old sailors' tales. After all, every isolated lighthouse carried ghost stories. Thomas believed loneliness, darkness, and powerful storms could make anyone imagine strange things. For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. Every evening he climbed the spiral staircase to light the great beacon that guided ships safely through dangerous waters. Every morning he recorded the weather, cleaned the massive lens, and inspected the tower. Life was quiet, but peaceful. Then the strange events began. Every night, just after midnight, Thomas heard slow footsteps climbing the staircase. They were heavy, steady, and impossible to mistake. Believing someone had entered the lighthouse, he searched every room from top to bottom. The doors remained locked. The windows were bolted shut. There was no sign of another person. Yet as soon as he returned to bed, the footsteps continued, circling above him until dawn. Soon other unexplained events followed. Doors opened by themselves. Lanterns that had been extinguished suddenly burned again. Objects disappeared only to reappear exactly where they had been left days earlier. Most disturbing of all was the sound of someone whispering his name through the thick ocean fog. Thomas tried to ignore the incidents, convincing himself that isolation was affecting his mind. But everything changed one stormy night when the lighthouse beacon suddenly went dark. Knowing dozens of ships depended on its light, he rushed up the staircase carrying a lantern. Halfway to the top, he stopped. Standing above him was the shadow of a man wearing the uniform of an old lighthouse keeper. The figure remained perfectly still before slowly fading into darkness. Terrified, Thomas reached the lantern room and managed to relight the beacon. As the light swept across the sea, he noticed something impossible. A ghostly ship floated silently through the storm. It carried no sails, no crew, and made no sound. The ship disappeared each time the lighthouse beam passed over it, only to return moments later from the thick fog. The next morning, Thomas searched through old records stored inside the lighthouse. Hidden beneath dusty journals, he discovered the diary of the first keeper. According to the faded pages, decades earlier, a rescue ship, carrying dozens of sailors had crashed against the rocks during a violent storm because the lighthouse light had mysteriously failed. None of the crew survived. Since that night, every keeper reported hearing voices calling from the sea. As the weeks passed, Thomas became obsessed with uncovering the truth. He spent sleepless nights reading forgotten journals and listening to the cries echoing across the waves. One entry described seeing glowing figures standing on the cliffs. Another spoke of invisible hands extinguishing the beacon moments before deadly storms arrived. Every account ended the same way. The keeper either vanished or abandoned the lighthouse forever. One freezing evening, Thomas climbed the tower after hearing desperate cries for help outside. Looking through the windows, he saw dozens of people standing on the rocks below. They reached toward him, begging him to save them. Without thinking, he ran outside carrying ropes and lanterns. The moment he stepped onto the cliff, every figure vanished. There had been no one there. Thomas realized the lighthouse itself seemed determined to lure its keepers into the darkness. The following night became the most horrifying of his life. As lightning flashed across the sky, every bell inside the lighthouse rang at once. The walls shook violently. The beacon flickered. The temperature dropped until his breath froze in the air. Then the whisper returned, louder than ever. "Leave, before sunrise." Instead of running, Thomas climbed to the lantern room once more. There he saw dozens of transparent figures surrounding the great light. Their faces were pale and filled with sorrow rather than anger. Among them stood the first lighthouse keeper, holding the same old journal Thomas had discovered. The ghost silently pointed toward the sea. Looking through the window, Thomas watched another ghostly ship emerge from the fog. This time he understood the truth. These spirits were not trying to destroy ships. They were trapped, endlessly repeating the final moments of their lives, unable to find peace because the tragedy had never been remembered. The next morning, Thomas left Blackstone Lighthouse forever. Before leaving, he placed every journal and record into a wooden chest and sent it to the nearest coastal town so the story of the lost sailors would never be forgotten. Years later, historians confirmed that a rescue vessel had indeed disappeared near those cliffs during a violent storm, exactly as the journals described. Although the official records blamed rough seas, locals continued believing something darker had happened. Today, Blackstone Lighthouse stands abandoned. The beacon no longer shines, yet visitors still report seeing a mysterious light sweeping across the ocean on stormy nights. Some hear footsteps climbing the empty staircase. Others claim a lonely keeper watches from the tower before disappearing into the fog. Fishermen still avoid the area after sunset, convinced that the lost souls continue waiting for someone to hear their story. So, if you ever find yourself sailing through a lonely sea and notice an old lighthouse glowing where no lighthouse should be, don't answer the voices calling your name from the mist. Some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, and some lights are not guiding travelers home. They are searching for someone to join them forever. If you enjoy mysterious stories, haunted places, and chilling legends from around the world, don't forget to subscribe to Whispering Walls. Turn on the notification bell, and join us for another unforgettable journey into the world's darkest secrets. Until next time, stay curious and never ignore the warning hidden in the fog.